Good morning and welcome to the Finance and Audit Committee for April 11th. And I have the annotated version of the agenda for today, so I'll call the meeting to order. Introduction of late items, please, Ms. Snellgrove.
Thank you. So we're reordering the agenda items as follows. 6A, Smart Cities Challenge. 6B, Tender 2095, Beban Park Boiler Plant Upgrade and Replacement of HV-1 Heat Recovery Coils. 6C, 2018 to 2022 Financial Plan Amendment. 6D, 2017 Surplus Allocation Report.
Thanks very much. I need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Hong. Any discussion, changes, omissions? In favor? Carried. Thank you. We need, here we go. The first item on the agenda is on your second page, and it is 6A, Smart Cities. There is a challenge, and it's to be introduced by Ms. Miller, our financial analyst, and it's to receive council endorsement for one of two projects presented to apply for under the Smart Cities Challenge program. It's all yours. I think you're on, I hope.
Okay, so there's the federal government's putting out, it's like a grant/competition program called the Smart Cities Challenge. It's open to all municipalities, local and regional governments, and Indigenous communities in Canada. And the goal of this program is to empower communities across the country to address local issues the residents face through partnerships and the use of data and connected technology. There's three categories of prizes that you can apply for. There's one prize of up to $50 million for all populations, two prizes of up to $10 million for populations under 500,000, and then the third one, which the city wouldn't qualify for, is one prize up to $5 million for people or a community under 30,000 people. So we would be looking to apply for probably that middle one for the $10 million kind of pot of money. Better chances with two prizes versus one, and also with the projects that we're bringing forward, 10 million submissions.
Wow.
So to support your projects that you want to apply for, you're supposed to come up with what is called a challenge statement. It's supposed to be defined, measurable, ambitious, and achievable. And your projects need to involve working with citizens and community agencies and organizations. So what we did was we put this idea kind of out to the public. We did it on Facebook, we did it on the NIMO.ca, and we posted it internally for employees to offer up ideas on what people thought were the biggest issues in Nanaimo and how they, or just ideas on how they think that they could be solved. And we collected all of those ideas and we got a group of staff together and we went through them all, and there's kind of two overarching kind of themes that emerged. And that was addressing Nanaimo's housing crisis and supporting Nanaimo's active transportation involvement. So I'm going to hand it over to John and Jamie, and they're going to discuss these two projects that we decided to bring forward to you.
So our proposal for this challenge statement for this funding is to look at how we use information to better serve the needs of those who have been homeless or in crises around finding housing. So the technology piece we're looking at is how we match the needs of those who are seeking resources and those who are providing resources. So if we think about homelessness as an example, this would envisage, say, a set of kiosks in the community that a homeless individual can go to.
Microphone up.
Do we want that up? Or? Yes, please. Like this way.
Thanks, Terry.
It's podium mic, Bill.
Yeah, it sounded like it was working.
Is it working now?
Better.
All right, cheers.
All right, thank you.
My apologies, Terry. Sorry, Terry.
So we're
Back in that box, Terry.
yeah. So the idea is to match the information needs of people seeking resources with those providing them. So if you were a homeless individual, you would go up to one of the kiosks that would be scattered through the community, and you could check in at the Salvation Army real time. Is there a bed available for me tonight? The Salvation Army would receive that request in real time. Oh, there's someone who's looking for a bed. We can slot them in and book them in right here and now through this kiosk. Additionally, for example, if you were someone seeking to rent or to find an apartment or somewhere to live, this could be a housing hub as well, so you can connect with people who have apartments to rent or basement suites to let or seeking roommates. One of the things we looked at is that roommate matching program that's done in some cities. So there's a variety of ways that we think that this prize or this project could be used to match up information. So now if you're looking for a piece of resources or something, you often need a navigator to help kind of a social worker or an outreach worker to find these things and line you up with the various services. This would sort of eliminate that and provide that direct connection right into services. We'd also give those services a real-time feedback. Here's the demand in our community, here's the need in our community, and be able to allow them to allocate the resources more efficiently. So there's that part of it where there's the individual seeking resources from institutional providers, such as commercial landlords or social service agencies. But there's also a significant amount of individual charitable acts in this community, and lots of you are familiar with that. People do want to help and want to give. Sometimes they're not sure how to do that or what the best way to do that. So we further see this as a way of matching the needs in the community with the private charitable intent. So if I'm a person who wants to help homeless folks, and I don't want to do that through an institution like the Salvation Army, I get more satisfaction from a direct relationship, then this could be a way of fostering that. Here's a person who needs a new pair of boots. I'm a person who has a new pair of boots to give, and there's this matching piece that can happen. At the moment, what happens is those folks end up dropping all that stuff at the door of the Men's Resource Center or the Salvation Army, and those organizations pile it up, and people show up and pluck through it. And so it's a bit of an inefficient approach to the whole thing. So we would see this project as aligning, here's what I need, and here's who can provide it, and whether that be an institutional response or a private citizen, it's all about housing and the resources that go along with that, and about matching those in real time and using technology to really make that a hyper-efficient and eliminate the middleman and get that really true matching of the two pieces. So that's sort of the short version of the thing. I know that as we go forward down the road, if this is successful, we'll have to go much more elaborate around that, but that's the basic elements of it. So I'm not sure if you want to jump in, Jamie, if there's any questions or...
Thank you, Cheryl and John. Jamie, did you want to?
Why don't you go
On
ahead?
that one, but I'll talk to mine.
There's the clicker.
I've got a question for John.
Oh, maybe let's let them finish and then they're all going to stay.
Okay.
Just stay, don't go away yet.
Pardon me? Okay.
Thanks.
So the second option is the challenge statement of doubling active transportation trips by 2041. This is a goal that was set out in the Transportation Master Plan a couple of years ago. We've been working towards this, and we've been introducing bike lanes and sidewalks and other facilities to promote active transportation. We're reviewing our land use and development processes. One of the challenges we have is tracking how people use active transportation. It's really challenging to capture where people are walking, where people are cycling consistently. We can do little localized spot checks of things and get an idea of how many people are using the ENN trail or how many people are using this bike lane. But it's really difficult to get a picture for the entire community. So, and this is not unique. This is something that most communities are challenged by. So what we want to try and find is a way to be able to capture this data real time and then create a system where we can proof that out in the field by having some actual on the ground count stations and be able to have this data updating on a regular basis to provide us with better guidance on how and when we prioritize projects. So, yeah, that's our plan. Oh, sorry. So this is a screenshot of our transportation model for vehicle data right now. Ideally, we'd want to be able to generate something similar for pedestrian and cycling movements as well.
So where we go from here is we are looking for endorsement for one of these projects. And what you do is you submit an application, which we would have to do by April 24th. Myself and another financial analyst would work on that. And this program is designed is that they will select some finalists for the big grand prize. And if you become a finalist, they give you $250,000 to come up with a bigger business plan and a better proposal. So with the ideas that John and Jamie were talking about, that would really give us the money and the time to really make these ideas come together. So the deadline to submit those, well, in the summer of 2018, we would find out if we were a finalist. And then we would be given a few months, so winter 2018, 2019, to prepare these proposals with the $250,000. And then it goes back to the federal government again, and they will review everybody's business cases, and the winners are announced in spring 2019. And that's about it. So if
thank you
anybody
very
has any
much.
questions about anything.
Much appreciate that. We'll just use our buttons, and I have Councillor Fuller, Councillor Kipp, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Fuller, please.
It's a question for Mr. Horn. Would the thing that you're talking about include a list of organizations that provide rent subsidies and the criteria for getting those rent subsidies?
Absolutely.
Hint, hint, again?
Yes, they would. And
Cool.
that's an information piece that even we're hard pressed to find, right?
I
So
know.
I'd want everything, the point would be to have everything available to everybody, like a total information field, if you will, and then everyone knows what everyone knows.
And then
That's-
that way, if someone's looking at it who is homeless, they can see who does the subsidies, whether they qualify
Yeah.
or not.
And you
et
can
cetera, et
determine
cetera.
that subsidy is taken, that one's available, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And for the transportation one, will it be looking at surfaces, like for walking? I was talking to someone yesterday, I was out wandering in the woods, he says, you know, this is far better than walking on pavement. And when we talk the E&N Trail, which is a great trail, I can't walk on it a lot because my feet get sore. Whereas I can walk out in the woods or on a softer trail, and as you get older, that happens.
Okay.
Yeah,
I wouldn't envision it looking at the sort of standards to, like, whether it's an urban hard surface or a sidewalk or a more parked soft surface trail.
Just more general.
This would be looking more at usage,
Okay.
trying to determine where people are going, when they're going there, and being able to prioritize things based on that.
Okie dokie, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Kipp, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Yocum, Councillor Hong.
Thank you, and appreciate the information coming to us today. A smart city would be a good idea. I'd like to know where there is one in the world, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere, or we'll reinvent it. Our housing crisis is an interesting one, and like even maybe we could make, just as I'm sitting here thinking, because I just got the information, maybe instead of just having 5 beds in houses with 5 different people, we have to up that now, because that was put in the 90s, right? So maybe we have to look at the housing models that we have now, where we only allow 5 people from one type of person. And for me, the kiosk is a great idea, but it should be a 311 system, and that should be across our community. It should be for others to go gather bus information, everything. So active transit with our massive cell phones put up everywhere, so a guy can run up to the cell phone and deal with it. Interactive safety, so there could be direct contact to police and everything. That should go across our community if we're spending millions of dollars. And it should be tied together as a 311 system. So everybody anywhere can get information in our community, not just the homeless. And not just so people are afraid to go to the homeless area. So it's not yours. The province and the feds are putting us in a gaming situation for our money. So this is a gaming situation. We got to go up against other communities to get our money back from the feds. Wow. For inventive stuff that's going on now. They should take some money and tell us all the inventive stuff that goes on there too. And every community is making this up as we go. And it's still an experiment. We're across our country. The feds and the province have to get involved in this homeless issue because we're picking up a tab. Active transport to me is data scraping right now. And a guy named Mark Zuckerberg, I've been watching him for a couple of days and recording and listening to him. Data scraping is an interesting one for me, of how you track and follow people and how we do that. We can do it by cell phones right now. If you get the access to it, everybody who has a cell phone is trackable, right? And so you can just ask a bike rider, will you ride your bike for a week and show me where you go? And ask him that and let him free up his information to you. Every person that walks, we could give a pedometer or ask them for a GPS tracking device. So build that into the plan. if people want to entertain that data being scraped, right? Because I know Donald Trump doesn't like knowing where he's at, right? I think, so for me, I like the idea. I go for 50 million, show them smart cities, show them the kiosk system of 311, show them active transit, show them modeling it. Every time a bike goes by one of the kiosks, they could log in where they've been. So expand it as big as you can get it. And 10 million, yeah, we shoot for the 10 million all the time, right? We shoot, and we don't ever fail in life because we shoot down here. And if we shoot up here and get to here, we're still getting high. So I like to shoot high for these things, especially with this. So we can do a bunch of things with our housing crisis, number of beds, housing types, identifying housing types. So we know what is our transitional housing, what is our emergency housing, what is affordable. What is the term affordable? It's the mean income for someone in the community. And nobody in this room, maybe except a couple people, might be in that category. Everybody else makes way more than that. So it's hard for us to judge through that windshield in my BMW when I drive to work, or my car to judge that. So I appreciate this, but I would like to have heard this before today's meeting and got the information long before this. How long has it been on the plate with the staff? Has it been a couple weeks or whatever? Get it to us soon so I can investigate it and understand it better. But thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Sarah. Question on this where you said it has to be affordable housing or active transportation.
Why is this a
there
finance?
anything you can link the two together? Is that like a possibility you can look at that might come into play? I'm just thinking it might give us a better opportunity when we're linking two priorities together.
We probably could. I mean, we could use the kiosk idea, like Kip said, to kind of encompass a lot of issues. It's a little bit tough, like in what I read through the application guide, is everything kind of addressed a single problem. Like you were supposed to pick an issue and address that problem. So I would have just a hard time trying to identify what our, I guess just connected technology would be our issue, and we need to connect it more. So we would just kind of, I guess, need to creatively think how to really link those two together to get a good solid application in, but it would be possible.
We're going to FCM.
Absolutely.
Yeah, also, I'm just looking at going back to the housing thing where it says that, you know, with your system there, what's going to be in that? Is it just going to be like the support groups that are available? It's not going to be individual names, right? It's going to be
Yeah,
like,
no, I mean, there would be, there has been systems in the past where individuals who are, for example, homeless individuals, they did this system in Vancouver around Christmas time where they would do a little video. Hi, I'm John, I'm from Newfoundland. I could really use, a new pair of shoes. And then people would go onto that site and they'd go, oh, yeah, there's John, he seems like a nice guy, I'll get those shoes for John. And so there was this connection. What they did was they really helped people who were alone at Christmas time in a new city connect with charitable individuals in that community, and there was this thing that they did. So I thought there was an aspect where people could self-decide to put themselves out there to say, hey, I'm new in the community, I'm struggling, nowhere to live, et cetera, here's the things I need. So people could choose, I think, to put themselves out there to be sort of, hey, maybe I'll put a spare room in my house and he can come and live here. So there is one aspect where I think some individuals could elect to put themselves on there. But really, it wouldn't be about personal information. It would be more about, is there a space available? Is there an apartment to rent? That sort of way. So it would be relatively depersonalized, yeah.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yocum, then Councillor Hung.
Thank you. Thank you all for this exciting smart challenge we're about to engage in. First of all, whatever we submit, I support. But I just want to have a quick conversation on it. I'm just reading through the criteria. So we have till the 24th, so you guys don't have much time to submit the first application. And I want to know how much, and then it says connected to technology and data. Is that one of the key things they're looking for in the proposal? So I'll get to
Yes.
my next one.
Yeah, that's the idea, is that they want you to solve the problem using data and connected technology, and also by, with partnerships with other organizations as well. Those are kind of the two key things.
Okay, great. So I'm just reading the minister's note there from Infrastructure and Communities, and they're really stressing us on application, which I think we're going to get to, and this is great. I just want to encourage, says out of the box, bold and think out of the box. And then they go on stating their priority would be in partnership with residents, which we've done, private sector, academia, not-for-profit industry, and more. And they mentioned numerous times in here about in First Nations or Indigenous. So where I'm going with that is, out of the box, our stuff's great, but is it really out of the box? Because they're gonna get a million proposals for housing concerns around this country. Everyone's gonna have, so I know I know the need, I totally respect the need. But where I'm going is, if we're gonna do that, let's think out of the box, which you guys probably are. This isn't a critique, by the way. This is just me, my blue sky net here, and this is fun stuff. This is good, this is good, this is encouraging to be here and having this conversation. So, I just hope we can, and 24th doesn't give much time, but I think the more partnerships we have, for example, I don't know where this is going, technology, but I'm already thinking about Banana Lands, waterfront, if we can link stuff to First Nations and VIU, et cetera, which you guys already done all this probably up here. So, so I want to encourage outside the box. Otherwise, we probably just be another proposal saying, yeah, because they're well aware of the housing issues across the country, these politicians and bureaucrats. So I look forward to being a support however you want us to, but I encourage whatever we submit regardless. I just want to share my 2 cents. Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm rambling now, but just wanted to encourage out of the box where let's wow someone out of the box. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Yocum. Councillor Hung.
Thank you for staff for the options. Are we only to pick one? Or can we do 2, or what was the recommendation?
Well, in our staff report, our options were to pick one or the other, but as it's been mentioned, there might be an interest in combining the 2. So
Yeah,
if
thank
what you
you.
decide that you want us to do, then we can look at a way at doing that, so.
Okay, that's my first question, thank you. And then, and I get that this is a smart cities challenge. You know, I had some ideas when this was presented that, man, ICF would be great because we can connect the other cities to, you know, through the trail and have an active transportation aspect of it and have the bed and breakfast and all this other stuff if we had the time to connect, talk to all these other cities to kind of throw a package deal in, but I don't think it says that in the criteria. So that would have been something that would have been great if we can move forward with that for, but when you talk about smart technology, you know, what's smart about a trail? So I kind of crossed that off my mind in the big data world. And then the other one I thought of that we all know is coming that might be bold, as Councillor Yocum said, is something to do with earthquakes. I haven't thought of what. Maybe Councillor Kipp, like I said, if we had this discussion, he can come back next week and tell me what. But we know it's coming. Everybody knows it's coming. And what are we going to do about it with smart city technologies? So, for example, free Wi-Fi. If things go down, cell towers go down, how do we then connect to the rest of the world? Because I don't have a house phone. For anything else, I don't plan on it. Other people don't have house phones. If these landlines go down, and as bad as it is, how are we as a city gonna get past that hump with the help of technology? So I thought that would be a great one. Like I said, I don't know what that entitles, but when we talk about things that are going to be bold and that's going to move us forward that we need help with, yeah, active transportation, I think like Councillor Yocum said with that, and housing, I think everybody's doing it. You know, the other one I said was transit because we couldn't track buses, but now they are doing it. We can't pay with our phones that China can. They don't even use cash. Everywhere you go, you just pay in the rest of the world. So that's not really bold moving. It's something what other people are doing. But, you know, earthquake and tsunami, I don't think we'll get hit with a tsunami here. But I thought that would be really cool. And again, I'm just rambling, but I don't know what cool is and how we can make it work. But
Well, from what I've read from the program, they are planning on having this open up again. So it is good to start coming up with those ideas, and then we're more prepared for the next round of funding. Like, this was a fast turnaround for us, and so we can be better prepared for the next round of funding when it does come out. I'm not 100% sure when that is. I know that this one closes in spring 2019, so maybe sometime after that. But it's good to start keeping those ideas, and we can keep a running list and keep getting community input for the next round as well.
Yeah.
And as far as for this one, I think we thought that the kiosk idea was kind of thinking out of
Yeah.
the box. You
That's-
know,
I
yes,
agree.
homeless is an issue everywhere, but that was kind of our out-of-the-box thinking to help.
Yeah, and that's the one I would, if we're had to choose one or the other, that's the one I would.
It was really hard because there is so much technology out there, and the ideas
Yes.
we were coming out with, it was like, oh, well, somebody already has that. Oh,
Yeah.
well, Vancouver's already doing that. So to really come up with something was actually quite difficult. But
Yeah.
we think that the kiosk idea was really good, and it could be used in a lot of ways. Like right now, we're talking about, specifically in here, we were talking about it just for homelessness because it was just a one issue we can solve, but we definitely thought of like the unlimited things that we could use them for in the future, but that would be our starting point, I guess.
Yeah.
We thought it would be great, you know, down the road for tourists and for like really endless possibilities what it could be used for. So that was just kind of our starting point to solve that issue, as that is a big issue right now in Nanaimo, and it was a good way to compartmentalize a application.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just wish to remind everybody that we have two recommendations in front of us, and if you wish to add a recommendation, then now would be the opportunity to express that. Our staff have till the 24th in which to submit, and they've done the uptake, they've done the work on the reaching out through our own website and so on and so forth. So I think we need to be very careful in how much we try to add to this right now, and that's just my comment. But any first-time speakers wish to get on? Jerry, are you finished?
I'm done. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Kipp and Councillor Fuller, and then as soon as that takes place, we're going to call the question.
Mine's.
Or we're going to receive the delegation, and then we're going to.
I have, on Jerry's issue, we're gonna have a huge homeless issue if there's a big earthquake, so there you go. And, yeah, we'll need a bigger morgue, and we'll need barcode IDs for people, because it will be, that's a subduction, worst quake ever gonna hit us, yeah. There's more things we can do. Yeah, I like the expansion of it. I think you've got some ideas here today. I'm not willing really to take it on the right now to make a motion, but we can move the stuff forward. I think staff needs to continue to go on this and put together some of the ideas they've had and heard from, and get it to some community group as possible, as soon as possible. I think there's a session coming up with the community involvement group. Might be one of their ideas to put on the table there, and so get it moving. And so I appreciate the ideas coming forward and the information. Why is it at Finance Committee though? Like that, just to get it on the table fast, and I appreciate that. Is that why it's at Finance Committee? Because what are the requests for funding or anything right now for this?
There's no request for City Nanaimo funding. I guess we're just looking for endorsement, and it was timing. And generally, for any grants, we go to the Finance and Audit Committee first.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the work.
Thanks.
Councillor Fuller, Laura, did you hit your button, or did somebody hit their button? Oh, you did? Did you want to speak?
We know that once this recommendation passes, it'll be brought forward to the April 23rd council meeting for endorsement.
Thank you.
Motion
We have Councillor Fuller, and then we can go backwards. Thank you.
I'm just curious, because looking at the kiosk idea, as you were saying, that could be much broader than just using it for one thing. So would that be a possibility for the Smart Cities thing, is to include both of these items in it and the potential for others? It's a really great idea. Now, when you talk about the kiosk, are you talking physical or?
Yeah, you're basically
Because-
talking like a physical kiosk you would step up to. We looked at a couple of examples around the world, and there's some in Barcelona, for example. When you get off the train station, there's a kiosk. It's face level. you know, you type into this touch screen
Okay.
and you can, I need a bus to
Yeah.
get to wherever.
Yeah.
And that's what they use it as a transportation function. So I think that the kiosk piece could embed a whole bunch of things for citizens, whether it be, here's the heritage tour that you're, or this is the building you're looking at, here's the history of it. So within the kiosk, you can embed a ton of
Subjects.
stuff. And including, of course, connection to resources and services, but all sorts of other more citizen or tourist-friendly pieces could go in there.
And it would
Absolutely.
also be something that you could put an app for on a phone, would it not?
I would think so. There could
Because
be a
just
matching
about,
app.
just
We-
about everybody has cell phones.
I think they expect some kind of app in this application somewhere to emerge, so I would imagine there'd be an app that connects to your cell phone. And,
Cool.
yeah,
I think it's a great
so.
idea.
So.
Thanks.
If you, and no more questions for Michelle or Jamie or John? Okay, thanks, guys, appreciate it.
Do we need a receipt of that?
I think we're fine. So the recommendation is that the Finance and Audit Committee recommend that council endorse the application for the project proposal addressing Nanaimo's housing crisis for the Smart Cities Challenge. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Hong, seconded by Councillor Kipp. Any discussion? Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. I'm more inclined to support the active transportation idea, simply because we have spent a lot of time on homeless issues. We've sort of spun our wheels sometimes we've gone ahead. I'm thinking that we spend a lot of time at council going over development applications, et cetera, and we start to rely on our policies that are, we want to move people in different ways. And this active transportation is something that looks at that and could help us a lot in that area. And I think it's time that we took a broader view of what our goals are. And this is certainly a goal that we've had some considerable discussion about. We have policy that talks about active transportation, and I'd like to see us use some federal money actually to push this ahead. I know it's an issue that is being taken up by other cities across Canada. I went on the FCM tour of active transportation in Winnipeg, and it was quite impressive. And Winnipeg's a whole different kettle of fish with the snow issues that they have, but still they were working on it, moving ahead, learning stuff that we really need to be able to canvass our citizens and see where they stand. So I think this for me would be my preference, is to go with the active transportation. I think we have lots of initiatives boiling on the homelessness issues, but I think we need to broaden our point of view on some of these things.
Thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I did look at active transportation, as I said, with regards to the ICF and more cities and Nanaimos and First Nations and that involved. But when I read the criteria and what Councillor Yoakum said, it has to be a wow factor. It has to be out of the box. It has to be new technology because it is a smart city. So that's why I lean towards the Smart Cities Challenge for housing crisis, because exactly what staff said, those kiosks can be used for other options as well. In case an earthquake comes, they can, if these things are not powered by traditional ways and we lose power, we have access points for the city to get resources and for help, for emergency preparedness, that these kiosks can flash light red and blare sirens if a tsunami is coming or something in that terms. So I think as a smart city move in technology and big data, I support the housing one as the first step to using those kiosks for other options. Thank you.
Okay, the board's lighting up. Councillor Brennan, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Fuller.
Thank you. I think that active transportation is something that it's a hot topic at this point. It's not called that. We don't talk about it in that way, but we are dealing with climate change. We're dealing with the biggest political crisis right now in BC is the Alberta oil and the pipeline coming through here, our coastline. Those are things that are absolutely connected to this issue of transportation alternatives and how people move around. Homelessness is, it's obviously it's a big problem across the country, but I think we might be trying to solve an issue of supply with a kiosk. I'll bet you that most people who are homeless have a pretty good idea of what's available, and that they may be using the kiosk to find out there's nothing there. There's nothing there for me. So that's what I fear would be a very expensive way of people who are homeless finding out that there's no room. There's no room at the inn, that kind of stuff. Whereas the active transportation is going to be actually boots on the ground dealing with an issue that is of national importance right now. So I think we would be missing the boat on out-of-the-box thinking, because the homelessness issue is something that we talk about all the time, and the other issue comes to our table and we don't talk about it in the same way, but we can't ignore that that's one of the primary issues facing this country. So if we want to be active and smart and different, then we need to change our focus and say, how do we get people to move about in ways that they're comfortable, that don't involve issues of exacerbating climate change problems.
Thank you. I have Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Fuller, Councillor Yocum.
Thank you. I'm very mixed on both of them. I think if Alberta stops the pipes, we'll all be walking, so we'll find out that pretty fast. But going back to what Councillor Yocum said, you know, we do need the linkages to the First Nations. We have a large off-reserve First Nations population as well that come in that I don't think are always connected to services. I think sometimes they don't want to reach out. Other people don't want to reach out that may be on the verge of homelessness. So, and I think the kiosk would be a good thing because there's not the embarrassment. I think, you know, if we're doing the linkages, like, you know, some people don't know where to go to get food, or the food shares, or stuff like that. So I'm kind of tending towards that area, that it would supply people that, we make assumptions that all homelessness know stuff, but there's a lot of people here that don't, that are on the verge of being homeless, that don't know where to reach out, where to go, that might be comfortable going down to push that to see, oh, I can go here and I can find out about how to get food here, or things like that. So I'm kind of leaning more towards the affordable housing. I understand what you're saying about the transportation, but I don't know, very mixed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Fuller, then Councillor Yocum.
I really like the idea of the kiosk idea, because it can allow for future additions to it, such as where can I get a bus, you know, where can I rent a car, where can I do this, where can I do that with the transportation stuff as well. Thinking out of the box, if we look at these kiosks in Europe as being helpful for people finding housing, well, we broaden that. We broaden that kiosk so that it has a number of different apps on it eventually, so it can be added to. It can have transportation. It can have other items that are important to people looking for something on it, not just housing and homelessness. I'm not sure what the total homeless population is in Canada, but it is everywhere, and it is getting worse and worse and worse. And yes, climate change is getting worse, but the electric car is coming. More and more of them are becoming available. Still a bit pricey, but I'm sure we will be seeing more of them. Tesla obviously thinks they're a good idea because they've got 8 charging stations up by chapters. So, and I actually saw a car in one day. So that stuff's moving along. I really like the kiosk idea because it can be much broader than just what it's being proposed for. So,
Councillor Yocum.
Thank you. Of course, I'm going to support whatever we have to hand in on 24th. Maybe I'm out left field, or maybe I'm naive or something, but how is this a kiosk a wow factor? Just bear with me. It's a good project, but like, I don't know, let me just go back to that in a second. I'm sort of inclined to be leaning towards what Councilor Brendan's saying, like, a wow factor is government's interested, obviously climate change is a real issue. And walkable and, what's the state here? To make people more mobile in our city, if we could think of a way to, out of the box. Of course, we need more trails. I like what Jerry's going with the trails that we can control in our city on maybe the rail line. But I'm gonna go totally out there for a minute and for conversation's sake. And I know the 24th is close. We all know for the last year and a bit, or since for the last 5 years, this is a fund from the Infrastructure Canada. So I also think the recycling issue that's in this city, it would qualify in that area as well. And we all know that this has been a topic of concern for the residents for the last 5-6 years plus. And recently what's happening to council and the needs in the city. Apparently there's some profound work in the recycling. Why don't we create a model, so think about a model in the recycling area that affects, I don't want to add more murky the waters here. I'm just thinking out loud here. And there's probably not enough time. But also I think we go down to the last minute with the most unbelievable proposal. Because these won't come around very often, because I know there might be another cycle, there could be a change in government, so I like thinking for the moment, so that's in front of us. So, if we went down, like, whatever we do, we have an app, we can app our app. Everyone has apps, it seems like. So possibly, am I on left field, staff, about the recycling issue that's been in front of us for the last year and a bit, and thinking, could we not create a model of infrastructure that works under this? Because we already, apparently there's 7,000 people, the data's right there. I don't know. Because I'm not convinced, and I don't want to come across that homeless isn't a concern. It's a big concern. Many, unfortunately, I have a lot of involvement with homeless. But I'm not convinced the feds are going to see that as a wow factor on this. I'm not saying don't fight for homeless dollars in any avenue scrape, and we've got to lobby and fight for dollars. That's another conversation. I'm just not convinced that they're going to say this will just get murkied with the 60 other ones on the same subject, and it's not. There might be zero wow factor. I don't know, unless because I didn't see that standing out in their application that I just read. And my next question is, if this is the 24th, this is no reflection on staff, so I don't think I'm being negative Nelly here. You guys are all amazing, do good work. And if we are going to do this on the 24th, I don't know if I'm not comfortable having this conversation in the open, because it's like showing the other team your game plan. Because there's not a lot of cities that are sophisticated and maybe not where we are. That's another food for thought. Because if we come with the best idea, I don't know if I'd want to share it for those cameras. You know what I mean? Oh,
I think an issue too.
That's a great idea there. Let's do that. Anyways, kidding. So I'm rambling now. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
I think one thing as well is that one of the requirements was to involve community engagement, and when we did engage the community, like, nothing came up about recycling, you know what I mean? Things that did come up were about, like, they're supposed to help identify our issue and how to solve it, and those were the overarching kind of ideas that came out from our community. So I think that is also a big kind of proponent for the application.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Staff level 2. Okay, hang on here, please. Thank you.
Just following up on what Michelle said, yes, the key part of this is we have to have a challenge statement for the community. So we do need one challenge statement. It has to be an issue that our residents feel is a pressing need in the community. And then we have to be able to identify performance measures, because we have to show afterwards, how are we going to show that we've met the goals of what we are trying to do. So I think even combining the two ideas is very difficult, because how do we put that into one challenge statement that's really going to impact and address the needs of the community? We can't put a hodgepodge of things together and call it one challenge statement. And as Michelle mentioned, they have indicated that they think there'll be other rounds, so there's definitely opportunities we can apply in the future for this. The other thing is the April 24th deadline. The application does need to be in by the 24th, and it's not a lot of questions, but some of the questions are quite intensive, so staff needs some time to develop those answers. And the other thing to keep in mind is this is just the preliminary preliminary idea that goes out. If we are selected, we do have the opportunity, if we're successful in the next round, we get the money, we can develop that idea further, we can talk to community partners more, and build up that idea and bring more aspects into it, so we don't have to have it all solved at this initial application. Right now, we're just throwing our idea out there and seeing if we're one of the finalists. And just about bringing it out in public, many of the other municipalities do have websites for it and are soliciting, because you need public engagement for this, so we do need to communicate our ideas to the public and get residents involved in other organizations within the community.
Thank you. Appreciate that information, good insight. And remember, this is Canada-wide. Remember that we have to be unique. How do we set ourselves apart from the rest of every single other application that will be before them to become in that next round? And the staff only have a couple of weeks here, so I will call the question and the motion. You are all comfortable with the motion as it's been presented? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I didn't see a whole bunch of hands go up in all in. Well, there's only, the motion is that the Finance and Audit recommend that the Council endorse the application for the project proposal addressing Nanaimo's housing crisis for the Smart Cities Challenge, which was just so that is the motion that is been moved and seconded.
That's the motion that just passed.
And that is the motion that just passed. Was everybody clear on that?
No, that was my mistake. I was reading the separate ones. Thank you.
Okay.
I wasn't clear, to be honest.
Okay,
I
so,
thought we were doing the submit the project, not categorizing it.
well, we have an option, we have two options, and that's what was just debated, whether, and Councillor Brennan, which we discussed, I might support what Councillor Brennan's thinking about the active transportation versus the homelessness issue in kiosks, et cetera. And so the motion was moved by Councillor Hong, I believe, and seconded by Councillor Fuller? Councillor Kill. If you would like to, is there?
The vote's been taken, so we would need a new motion.
So we will just move on to the next item. Thank you very much. Very long conversation. 6B is tender number 2095, Bevan Park Boiler Plant Upgrade and Replacement of the HV1 Heat Recovery Coils, and it is to be introduced by Mr. Richard Harding, Director of Parks and Recreation. I think you're on number 3. There you go.
Am I on? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Scott Haminger, Manager of Engineering, wasn't able to make it today, so Scott, Art Groot, Manager of Planning and Facilities Operations, will outline where we're at with the tender and what we're requesting from Council today.
Thank you. Are you on there?
I think so. Is that on? How about now?
There you go.
Right.
Next in queue, you're in.
Good morning. Tender 2095 has been a multi-year process, started in 2016 with condition assessments of the boiler plant at Bevan Park. For those of you that aren't aware, the boiler plant at Bevan Park is original. It's 1975. It's got two low-efficiency atmospheric boilers from 1975. They're about the size of a minivan each, right? So they're starting to come to end of life, and as a result of the condition assessment, we also then, through a mechanical engineer and Fortis BC, we partnered up with them through a thermal energy study. And through the study, the recommendation was to replace boiler number 2 initially. And so the tender went out earlier this year, and ultimately the prices came back higher than expected. So the request today is to have the Finance and Audit Committee recommend to Council that the budget gets increased by about $68,000, with an understanding that once the project is complete, we receive an additional incentive from Fortis BC of about $35,000 that then goes back into the development reserve where we're requesting the surplus funds from, or the extra funds from. So the ask, I guess at the end of the day, is about $32,000, but initially it's a $68,000 ask.
Thank you very much. use your button, please.
Just willing to move it?
Moved by Councillor Yocum, seconded by Councillor Brennan. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
6C,
Gotta keep our old arena in shape.
to be introduced by Ms. Fulla. The purpose is to provide the Finance and Audit Committee with the revised 2018-22 projected property tax increases based on the motions passed at the April 4th Finance and Audit Committee meeting. And once we've had that presentation or that update, we'll deal with the motion.
Good morning. So in follow-up to the Finance and Audit Committee last week, the committee did request a number of pieces of information from us. So in follow-up, staff has provided the business case for the city solicitor position to council. As well, we provided some additional information on legal expenses, both actual and budget. We provided you with the higher service level request from 2012 for the communications manager position. We addressed Councillor Armstrong's question regarding the traffic fine revenue. We provided the project section of the budget in brief with the annual budget amounts per Councillor Hong's request, and Chief Fry also provided you with additional information regarding those 2 support positions that were added for police operations. As well, the committee requested that we make 2 amendments to the budget, which we have done. One was to add back the Director of Communications position. So I'd like to point out that the higher service level piece that we sent out to you was for a Manager of Communications, but that position was actually changed to a Director of Communications, and you asked us to reinstate the position as it previously was in the budget. So that's what we have put back in. We have assumed a July 1st start date for 2018 because obviously we're a ways through the year now, and if we advertise by the time someone started, it wasn't realistic to put in a full year's budget. So we put in a half year's budget, so that had a 0.08% property tax increase, and then next year we put the full budget in, so there'll be a bit of an impact in 2019 as we have the full funding for the position coming in. We also followed up and reduced the budget estimate for the RCMP contract from 93% to 92%. This has resulted in a 0.25% property tax decrease, or $247,081 was removed from the budget, and we have allocated from the 2017 surplus to the RCMP contract adjustment reserve that same amount, so should actuals come in over budget, we can access that reserve to fund the difference. So we are now at a 3.01% top property tax increase for 2018. 2019 has gone up to 3.07, and the remaining 3 years have remained the same as we presented last week. So the impact on a typical house went down $3 down to $59, and an overall impact with our utilities of $148.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions for Ms. Fulla or Ms. Mercer at this moment? I have Councillor Brennan and Councillor Hong.
Thank you. When you said that the communications position was as in, that you put it back as it was in the budget, do you mean the director then, or do you mean the manager?
We put it back as the Director of Communications because you asked us to reinstate it as it previously was in the 2017 budget, yes.
Okay.
So which is a higher level than the higher level service request from
Yes.
2012 because it used to sit as a manager position.
So what was it when it was a manager position?
The wage level?
Or the cost of it, because I guess you'd have to.
John, do you know what?
I don't have it directly in front of me, but I'm going to ballpark $15,000 less.
115?
No, $15,000 less than the director of the position.
10 or 15,000 less?
That's my recollection, that's very rough.
Okay.
It actually made a director position when NEDC was wrapped up and
Right.
the economic development shuttled over to communications.
Right. So is it your I mean, if we were to choose to have this position reinstated, is it your recommendation that it stay as a director, or could it be a manager?
I would think a manager would be a appropriate situation.
Well then, thank you. Then I would move, I guess, that the communications position be changed to a manager position and that the budget be amended as follows, I guess. Accordingly, I guess that's the word, yeah. That was a motion.
So I'm just looking at Ms. Snellgrove here, because if, there may be many
Yep.
or other change, I don't know, but if there are, if we, should we do them one, seriatim, or
It's a
should?
recommendation to council.
Okay. Okay, so it's moved by Councilor Brandon, seconded by Councilor Armstrong, that we revisit the communications position as a management versus a director, and the consequences of that on the 2018 budget. I guess that's what.
Yep.
That captures it?
Yeah, yeah.
Then I have Councilor Hong and then Councilor Armstrong.
On the motion, I can't support it. I think when we get a CAO back and that direction is, I think it's up to them to decide on what they need. I won't support the in-house lawyer at this point as well.
Can we just stay?
On, yeah, and on to staffing. So on the term of staffing, I'm not going to support any increase until times such as some upper management have told us that we need it. This committee of upper management that went through this, I hope they did before it was presented to us last week, didn't seem that it was necessary to have this position. So for that reason, I'm not going to support it until somebody tells me otherwise. So I then have to leave at 10 o'clock and I will be back. But just on a note on page, I do have a question on page 6 where it says our surplus funds. 1E says allocated water surplus. I don't think that word water should be there, so just to verify that. And I will be back if everybody's still here.
So if I might, Councilor Brennan's leaving it still? No, but you're leaving at 10:10? And Jerry's leaving and coming back at whatever. So can we deal with this motion that's on the floor right now with everybody that's here? Because who knows when we might get to the next one. Then I have Councilor Armstrong. Would you allow? Okay, yeah.
When you brought this budget to us last week, or on the 4th, I guess, was it a budget that was recommended by staff? Like, so that position, staff had considered it, or the staffing committee had considered it and suggested that it be gone?
We were directed by the CFO to remove the position from the budget.
And so you just maintained that position even though the CFO was on leave?
So prior to the CFO leaving, we had a list of changes to be made to the budget between provisional and final, and that was on the list of changes. No, it was removed at provisional, sorry. Yeah, it was out at provisional. So we were directed by the CFO prior to you seeing the budget in December. So in late November, we were directed to reorganize the communications department. 2 positions went to Parks and Recreation and 2 positions moved to Legislative Services, and we were directed to remove the Director of Communications. Sorry about that.
So the committee of the 7 directors that we had didn't change the budget from then. They didn't put their stamp on this budget. So Councillor Hong said he wanted to go with the recommendations from that committee, I thought.
That I can't comment on. If the CFO had communications with the senior leadership team on the removal of the position, I can't comment because I don't sit at the senior management table.
I could actually say that that group did not revisit recommendations. The only thing we did was say to pause the city solicitor and the manager of treasury and risk recruitment processes just because.
Okay, thank you. So this recommendation on the Director of Communication being removed entirely was actually fashioned by the CAO and the CFO at the time. I mean, I think that's
my direction came from the CFO.
Okay, thank you.
What conversations he had with the CAO, I can't comment on, but my direction was from the CFO to remove the position.
Thank you.
Point of blame, I guess.
I have Councilor Armstrong.
Just one last question here. I don't think it makes any difference of whether we change it from director to manager at this time, because it can only exist, and it's only
We are decreasing. It is decreased. It's not there.
Increase the budget.
So I would rather be on the safe side of it as director because the income is.
But it's not in there. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought it was not in there, it was removed.
The motion right now that we have is to add it back in
Yeah, so,
as a director or a manager position. But
yeah, so the motion is to add it back in. If that fails, then it's not there.
As a man,
Your direction last week from the committee was to add reinstate the position.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
As it previously was, so the 3.01 reflects a director of communication back in the budget for final.
Okay, thank you.
and on the floor now is for manager.
Yeah,
That's it for you.
And I have Sky, Ms. Nelgro,
I
please.
just wanted to read out the motion for clarification.
Thank you very much.
So that the communications position be changed to manager from director and the budget be amended accordingly.
Thank you. And I have Counselor Hong and then Counselor Brennan, or
No,
you're done?
Thank you. Just to verify that senior management committee did meet to remove 2 positions. So if they wanted to add a position, they had that opportunity. That's all I wanted to say, that they did meet because they removed legal and they removed that new position. So if they felt that they needed to put back a position, they could have done it. I'm saying whether they did or not, or didn't, they had the ability to remove 2 positions. They could have decided that they could have put back communications if they felt necessary, because they did remove 2. So clarification from staff?
The leadership
If
at
we-
that time
if-
did.
If we
Yeah.
could
It
just.
was the leadership of the time did it.
Yeah.
Let's not be always point and blame. Let's work as a system and an organization.
I have staff level 3. I'm not sure if that.
Yeah, I just want to indicate that the staff, I don't believe, recommended removing positions. All we said was we're going to pause the search for them. So that's not to remove them out of the budget.
Just to my mind, that means not include them in the 28. So it's the same as, to me, it would be the same thing, just with a different verbiage.
The city solicitor position and the manager treasurer are both in the budget. They're just, we're not currently recruiting for them. They're on hold, as Mr. Van Horn said. But they are included in the final budget that's before you.
Then I completely misunderstood what we received at the last meeting then, because I understood contrary to that. But that's why we meet, so we can figure this stuff out, I guess. So we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? And this is as it relates to the one position. All right. I'll call the question. All in favor?
I have my request to speak.
You may just press your button, please. Oh, you just did. Next in queue. I didn't realize that you actually had pressed the button.
Thank you. Can you tell me what the salary difference is between manager and director for that position?
15,000.
Okay, so where are we at? What's the low and what's the high?
I don't have that information. But I was asked previously by the group before what's the rough, and I said it's roughly 10 to 15,000.
Okay, but we don't know what the salary range is?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. So what's being debated right now is going from director to manager.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can't, I support the position, but I have trouble with director versus manager. I don't know what the salary range is. We need, in this position, we do not need a corporate communications specialist. We need someone who has experience on the ground that can deal with critical issues. Critical issues, we need someone who has crisis management skills behind them. So we better be prepared to ensure that whoever we get, whatever position we fund, is adequately funded to attract that individual. Thank you.
Councilor Brennan.
Thank you. No, I'm satisfied with that if that's the way we want to go. It's just that when that position was first in place, there was a very strong sentiment expressed by the community, including Councillor Fuller at the time, very concerned that this would become a corporate spokesperson, that this position would be used to protect council from the decisions that they had made. And I can remember Councillor Fuller and Ron Bolin and a number of other people coming to us and saying, we're really concerned that what you're really using this for is to just have someone else speak for the corporation instead of council. And we made extra assurances that that wasn't going to happen, that access would still be had to councillors and the mayor, and that there would not be a corporate spokesperson. They used words like mouthpiece. So that was important at the time. If it's not as important now, and that's what council wants, that's fine, I'll support that. But that was certainly the intent at the time, was that this position would assist the corporation, not speak for the corporation. And quite frankly, over the past while, we would have scripts with pieces in it for us to insert, comments, and that was specifically what we didn't want. If that's what we want now, that's great. We'll go for it.
Councillor Yocum.
Thank you. Just quickly, I think we're making this way more challenging, and why can't we just hire a staff person? I don't think they need to be a director or a manager, just a staff person. And for the simple fact, we get a director or manager, we're gonna have a director or manager, just say for better, lack of a better word, exam, and they'll say, oh, well, if I'm a manager, I better have staff. So this thing will just snowball. This will snowball. So I'd rather just, if I'm gonna proceed supporting this position, it's gonna be a staff member, not a director, manager, call it whatever fancy title you want. Nevertheless, I'm gonna change my position from what was a week ago, 2 weeks ago when we were here, whenever that was, supporting this position. Because I just want a staff person. I don't need to make a director or manager or whatever. Just a person to go out there and communicate for behalf of all the managers. I don't need another manager or director. I'm getting a little lost in all these terms now. Otherwise, we'll just leave it as is. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Just to Mayor McKay's point, if we could just stay on here on task, please, is that, the crisis management perspective, or that piece, I think is it Constable O'Brien, Mr. O'Brien, with the RCMP, and, we receive the messaging that comes out from their office in crises and otherwise, and School District 68 and RDN communications people. So I don't think anybody here thinks that a communications person isn't necessary, but whatever their scope of work or whatever their job description is, and where it fits into the overall scheme of things. But so I appreciate everybody's input. I will call the question, and everybody knows what the question is. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is defeated. So we'll go back to the motion that the 2018-2022 Financial Plan Amendment Report dated April 11th.
Mr. Chair?
I'm just reading what the recommendation from staff is.
No, for clarification on the last item, please.
Go ahead.
That's correct. I need clarification on what next step is. Are we suggesting stays as a director? Is that? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's still in the budget. And it's at the higher level, but 15,000 is nothing, I hear. And it's a $500,000 department.
Okay, so we will move on to, and thank you for that point of clarification. We'll move on then. The recommendation that the April 11th, 2018 be received for information. That is staff's recommendation. Do I have a mover?
I'll move it. I'll move it.
Let's move it.
Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Kipp. Any discussion? Councillor Fuller.
Does this allow for any changes still?
My answer would be
Yes.
yes, we will be
Yeah.
bringing this to the regular meeting on April 23rd.
Which, if I recall previous years, they go, well, the deadline is such and such, we really need to do this now, and then everything just gets approved anyway.
This is a committee that will
Yeah.
forward this to the council on April the 23rd for ratification of whatever is done or not done here.
Yeah.
Will take place on April 23rd. That's my understanding. Is that accurate?
Any big changes would be tough.
If council wishes to make changes, we would like those recommendations now because we would like to bring the bylaw for first 3 readings on April 23rd and then for final adoption on May 7th. So if you wanted to make changes on the 23rd, then we would need a special council meeting so that we could pass it first 3 readings and get adoption by the May 15th deadline. So it would be preferable to staff if you would like to make changes. Now would be the time to bring them forward so we can incorporate them into the bylaw we bring back to you on the 23rd. I've also pulled up the slide of the staff changes from my last presentation. Would you like us to go through that again if there's some confusion on which positions are in and out of the budget, or we're good?
So follow up on all of that would be that there were a couple of changes I would like to see made. And one would be to separate operating projects from capital projects and include the operating projects in the operating budget. And the other has to do with the unfunded liabilities, which I keep harping on. We did receive something from Ms. Mercer the other day, which shows in part unfunded liabilities. It mentions they're being funded by surplus, but doesn't mention which surplus. I would like to see that information in our budget. And it's not just sick time, it's accrued vacation time, accrued, it's accrued sick time as well. Because at some point, we will end up having to pay for those things. And throughout North America and the world, they're finding that unfunded liabilities are a huge problem within municipalities, within provincial, and within federal governments. So I really would like to see those, and I would like to see that people can look through the thing, even though not many people will look through it. So those are the 2 items I would like to see, one changed and one added.
Thank you. Well, following the process that we just undertook with the communications director-manager addition was by motion. So the only way at this table that any changes can be impacted would be by way of motion.
So I would put those forward as motions, or a motion.
There is a motion on the floor already.
To receive the report of April the 11th. So we can strike that.
The mover and seconder could withdraw the motion.
So the mover and seconder at this point in time could withdraw in order to make any amendments or motions for amendments at this time. Would the mover and seconder, what is your position on that?
Well, excuse me. We can continue with this motion, because it's to receive the report. Then a change could be made through motion, and then the staff would be tasked with that motion. We're just receiving this information, and then we want to make a change to it. So if we receive this information and make changes before we receive it, then it's odd to me that we do. I think we receive the report as given by staff, is on a point of order, and then we make our changes. Could someone clarify that?
In either way.
That sounds reasonable. So if we would like to then proceed with receiving the information as presented, and then following that, if anybody wishes to make a motion of amendment, then you'll be able to do that. Call the question. All in favor? And that's to receive the report. Opposed? So the motion is carried. now, if anybody would like, at the table, would like to make any amendments to the 2018 to 2022 financial plan as received, now is your opportunity to do such. And so I have Councillor Yocum, Councillor Kipp, Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, no, it's switched.
The question I would have, Ms. Fuller, I think you answered this for us yesterday, that was the last meeting, is if we did remove the solicitor out of, say, the budget, your recommendation was, though, keep it in general, like, for my simplicity, general legal. So, yeah.
Correct, because how we funded the city solicitor position was by reducing the legal budget and using those funds to fund the position. So if you were to remove that position, that would be my recommendation, that you move it back to legal. Otherwise, your legal budget would not be sufficient likely for 2018.
Okay, so removing that optically wouldn't really change the budget.
Would not impact property taxes at all.
So I've read that clear. Okay, and
Sorry,
okay.
excuse me, Chair, we don't have quorum at the moment? Okay, yeah, we do.
Oh, sorry. That was my question, Mr. Chair, and it was answered. So I did,
Sorry, yeah.
and I read that right. Thank you, Ms. Fuller. Thank you.
Yeah, I figured that.
I have Councillor Kipp, Councillor Fuller. Staff, that was you, right? Ms. Snellgrove? Not somebody over there? Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to continue on along with employee future benefit liabilities. I've researched in the Victoria budget, and they put a note in the budget on it, and they include in that accrued benefit obligations. And they start with information liabilities for obligation for the 2 years. They show the previous year. I've got 15 and 16 records. Their accrued benefit obligations include the balance at the beginning of the year, the service costs, interest costs, benefit payments, immediate recognition of loss gain, or that's event-driven liabilities, I'd suggest, right? People are quitting, and actuarial gains or loss, and then the accrued benefit obligation at the end of the year, less unamortized net actuary loss, and add pension over contribution due to staffing issues and accrued benefit liability over the year, and it shows the end amount. And I don't think that exists anywhere in our budget and hasn't for a long time, and it needs to be put in. Therefore, I would recommend that that annotation is put into our budget, and it's a motion. And then it would be also, I guess, any portion of the benefits charged against reserves. And I can hand this paper to you just as an example if you choose, or it's looked up in the Corporation of Victoria, notes to the financial statement. And there's a good explanation of what it is, because with index pensions and the growth of this, it grows very rapidly. We can see by the report we've had on page, oh no, it doesn't show any of the old, but we have a report that shows previous years and things. And this fund is growing, and the public needs the right to know it. It needs to be in the financial plan. It needs to have an asset attached to it. And I don't believe surplus is an asset. My example would be is if we only do 60% of the capital projects in a year and we surplus 40%, that's still tagged as an asset funding. And so we cannot, I don't believe we can use that to fund a liability, especially this one, to me. It seems almost to me somewhat hidden, and it's a concern for me. So I would like that put into our budget as a note and annotation to our financial statements and to our budgeting. So if I have a seconder, I'll second that. So thank you.
I have council.
That'd be a motion to move to council, not that we do it, but a motion to recommend to council, because this committee only recommends. I can give you the paperwork, but I recommend it included in the financial statements and our budgeting, the future employee future benefit liabilities, and all the accrued factors related to it, and what portion of the benefit is charged against reserves. So.
And it's been seconded by Councillor Fuller. If you will allow me just to ask a question, then Councillor Kipp, are you asking this to have a notation, or are you asking this to be a line item somewhere? Because I think there is a notation, but there might not be the line items, the specific allocated to a certain
Reserve.
department or whatever. So
Point of clarification.
that's what I'm just a little bit,
It would be a note in our financial statements, so at the end of the year, it would be listed in our, so for 2018, we get it in the 2017 financial statements, and on the KPMG or whoever's doing our audit would show that. And then in our budget, I want to show where that is coming from, very clearly identified, if it needs to be line item, or if it needs to be a departmental figure, or it needs to come under human resources or wherever, but it's clearly identified in the budget, what it was last year, if that's in the budget, what it'll be this year, and where it's coming from.
okay, that is better
It's a
understandable
current
for me.
plan.
Thank you. Okay, sorry, staff level 1, that's over there, thanks. Okay,
This information is in our financial statements. There is a very big note in our financial statements that explains, just as you said that Victoria does, we do not have a line in there that says in our reserve. But it is, their liability is listed on the balance sheet, and there is a note to the financial statements describing what that liability is and how it is calculated. For 2017, there was to adjust the liability to what it should be based on our actuarial report that was done. That entry is done, it's our very last entry we do when we prepare the financial statements. As I've said in my email to staff or to council, that is not in our budget. It has not historically been in our budget. And this year was about $692,000, and it was funded from our general surplus. I have reached out to our auditors for their comment on this, as it is something that has not come up as an issue that we were doing incorrectly. So I've reached out to them for their comments on this as well. So when I hear back from them, I would report that back to you all. So that's all I wanted to say, is that the only thing that we do not do currently with this is budget for it.
So, and that exactly what my concern is. This is late in the year when you get a financial statement. I don't know how many people read it, but if it's an unbudgeted liability, and I believe it's sitting around $8 million right now. 7.2? Okay, so only 7.2. But with the growth potential and indexing, it can climb very rapidly. I believe it was only $5 or $6 million a few years back, so within my term. So thank you very much. So how would we put it in the budget and show the line item for it? Because it'd be a surplus. So, and a follow-up on this, why I'm concerned about this is, every year for years we have a surplus, and last year we had a $2.7 million surplus. Interesting enough, that's what our tax increase is again this year. And we've ran surpluses for a number of years, and the surplus moves, and the surplus moves. And it's a concern to me, because I understand reserves, we need them when things go bad. Jerry's earthquake, when things go bad, we're gonna need some money to catch up with. But so I want this to be clear in the budget, and it's hard for me to understand the budget. This is a lot of information, and I'm just a little dumb semi-professional. So for me, it's important that I see this, and these liabilities are huge. When I look at my retirement, I have to think of my long-term liabilities, and it's a concern for me. So I appreciate that it can be put into the budget and explained where it comes from. Thank you.
thank you. Were you on, Wendy?
So just for clarification there, if you would like it in the budget, if you're asking that for 2018, rather than assume that we would fund that entry from surplus and you want us to actually put a line item in the budget, we would need to increase the budget by the amount. Because to put a line item in, then we need offsetting revenue to fund that. So we could do that. We could take, if council desires, we could take a 3-year average to make an approximation of what the entry would be for 2018, but then we would need offsetting revenue to fund that entry if we're not going to do it as practice of funding from current year surplus.
Well,
Okay, so that at this point, that would be funded then that would increase the property tax rate unless council has a desire to fund it in a different method.
Well, we're surplusing it. we were taxing people for it, they should at least know what they're being taxed for as a line item. We are absolutely collecting surplus money through taxation and user fees, and we're taxing the public, and they're not represented. 380,000 in 2015, 485 in 2016, and 357 in 2017, and I understand this year it's going to 600,000.
Yes, and we can definitely add a line item, as I said, but then I need offsetting revenue because the budget has to balance.
Reduction in services.
Or a reduction of services. Somehow, if we add that line item, we need to fund it so the budget balances.
And I like the zero balancing, where we take and give and take and give, and don't always grow. That's my problem. Everything is growing, growing, nothing is depleting.
Yeah, so I think we do need clarity on your motion if you actually want us to budget an amount, which we can do that, but then council needs to realize that's either going to impact property taxes or we need another suggestion how you wish to fund that new expenditure line item.
Reduce surpluses and tax appropriately. Motion.
Thank you, I have.
We're going to talk about this at
I'm
council.
not sure where we're at right now, but, because we have a motion.
Yes, there's a motion on the floor.
And could you just remind us all what that is, please?
Sure. So it was moved by Councillor Kipp, seconded by Councillor Fuller, and maybe the Finance Department can assist, but that the Finance and Audit Committee recommend that Council include in the financial statements employee future benefit liabilities, what portion is charged against reserves, and where it comes from.
I think that accurately reflects what I heard. Then I have Councillor Fuller. I have staff level 1. Laura, were you in? No? Okay. Then I have Councillor Fuller.
And I get that it's, this whole thing is funded by surplus currently, but which surpluses? We have a number of surpluses that come up to the total surplus, which we're going to be looking at next, probably, the surplus allocation report. So if this is being paid for, which surpluses is it coming out of? I like the way Victoria does it, and I don't see how doing it the way they do it is going to cost any more money than looking at what they've done and recreating it for ourselves, so that it makes it clear to people, to the public. That's all I want, is clarity.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. So there is any other speakers? There is a motion on the floor. I will, is everybody comfortable with the motion before we do it and then say, oh, I wasn't sure what we were doing?
No.
Okay, well then if we could please have,
Yeah.
you could please have the motion.
Sure. That the Finance and Audit Committee recommend that Council include in the financial statements employee future benefit liabilities, what portion is charged against reserves, and where it comes from.
So it's a line item. Yeah. Councillor Hung.
Thank you. So that would just be a note on the financial statements that we would have, that our auditor does, right? It's not, because all we need to know is where that's going to come from. Like, how much more information do we need? We need to know the total amount of what is owed per year. I guess we can decide for the next 5, or I don't know if you want to go all the way to the next 20 years of future, and then predict that as a note.
I think we just heard staff say that they could average over 3 years
Yeah.
and make some predictions. The motion, as I understand it, is to turn it into a line item in a departmentalized, if you will, or somewhere in one of the departments, so that so it's not just a notation in the body of the auditor's report, but it's actually a line item to reflect the amounts that we know what the amounts are, or what they've been. We know what they are, and we know how much we contribute to it. It's just not recorded as a GL or a cost center, whatever.
Yeah, currently, there is no expense line item in the
Right.
budget for it. But as I said, if we add that expense in, then we do need to look at how we're going to fund it. Because currently, we fund it from current year's surplus. I can't put an expenditure in without offsetting revenue to fund it.
But then we can probably do what we exactly did.
It's like it's supplementary to the existing budget. It's a supplemental to the existing budget. It's not in our budget, it's over here.
Yeah, but we can do exactly what we did with the RCMP budget, which I requested that whenever the surplus goes in, we just dump it into that. We would just move the money around from the surplus. If we budgeted to a certain amount, we would be able to offset that from, if you're getting a 3 years average, you can pull that money out from a surplus and stick it into that fund, a reserve, specifically for that. Kind of what we did with the RCMP, isn't that correct?
So if I might be able to make a recommendation or suggestion, simply because we're going to beat this up till whenever. If we can refer this back to staff to come back with options on how to.
Because this doesn't affect our budget, it's just a line item in our budget, right?
Well,
If we add expenditures to the budget, it doesn't
Yeah.
affect the budget bylaw.
But then
It
if you're
hasn't-
funding it from surplus, it doesn't affect the, because,
I guess it depends what surplus you're talking about. If it's funded from current year surplus, we don't know what that surplus is, so you can't add an expenditure line
No,
with no
previous.
offsetting revenue, because the budget has to balance to zero. If council is saying that what you would like to do is add an expenditure line item to the 2018-2022 financial plan, and for 2018, you want to fund that, say, from 2017 surplus,
yes.
we can do that. That won't impact your 2018 property tax
But
rates,
what's surplus?
it will impact your future years, because those would be funded from property taxes at this point.
It's 601 happened. It's
Yeah,
taxes.
No,
It's taxes previously collected
Yeah.
to pay for future employee benefit expenditures. You just don't know exactly what that number is. It fluctuates year over year.
Yeah, I think it's the same as the RCMP, because exactly what staff said. Next year, we're gonna have to do the exact same thing we're doing this year, saying that, please take out this much, 1%, stick it into a reserve to drop our 92 back down to 93. And I think what I've had from this discussion is we have to do this year after year, constantly, to keep the numbers low. At 92, because again, that's gonna go up, is from what I understood.
Just, this is non-related. Who is next in line? I apologize. I have to go.
Jerry, you
Okay, I'm finished, thank you.
Sorry, I have to.
My point on this is, how many other liabilities do not come out of our budget as an item? Like, a surplus is not a revenue. A surplus, I don't see it as a revenue. It's unspent money. But that money should be in our budget attached to something, or it should be called just a reserve, which is general reserve, and that's where stuff goes. So my concern is, we always are using a surplus of taxation to fund the liability of our staff's liability. It's not openly clear in the budget to me of where it comes from. How many other unfunded liabilities in our city do we have that aren't in the budget? That aren't recommended from a line item of an actual, where does that money come from? And that money should, if it's 300,000, it should be attached to a line item where that money comes from. So Joe Public can say, wow, we're paying this much for this. And how many people have stood at that thing saying the surplus, the surplus, the surplus? So please, what other aren't listed in the budget for funded? Can you tell me?
Let's see which one it's going to be. I want to see which one it was.
Well,
No,
got it.
I got it next in queue.
Everything that is under the public sector accounting body, we account for PSAB, which is what rules our accounting world. Everything that is required of us under those rules, we account for. We have a liability for each one of those items that we are responsible for reporting. From a budget perspective, the only one that we don't have a line item specifically for that I'm aware of is this, the sick leave retirement one.
Perfect, thank you, that answers my question. Thank you very much.
Anything
I think if
else?
you want, we can move this back to staff, get them to question, I can give them the things I think should be seen in our budget, I'm not certain if they are, and how they can be referred into our budget, and where we could see a line item. If you think that's better, refer it back to staff. Yeah, I'm happy to refer it back.
Second. Call questions, motion to refer, no discussion. Motion carries. Thank you.
I think staff understands.
Okay, so where are we next in our agenda?
On, there you go.
Do you have your agenda?
So we're on, just come from that.
I think we're done.
Smart City.
The next item is the 2017 surplus allocation report.
Well, the allocation.
So which one?
Move
Okay.
receipt of the allocation report.
Seconder?
That's all the motion you need on a receipt for information.
Sorry,
Sorry.
would you like me to read out the motion?
Please.
On the agenda?
I don't
That the
have it here.
Finance and Audit Committee recommend that council approve the allocation of the 2017 operating surplus as follows, and then there are a list of reserves and amounts associated with that that are listed on your agenda.
So that was moved by Councillor Kip, correct?
Yes.
Seconder? Councillor Hong? Discussion? Seeing none, call the sorry.
Is this on the surplus allocation thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hong?
Through you to staff, I see that we have general fund, sewer fund, and water fund. We don't have a garbage fund. Where does that fit into?
Not from taxes, it's usually.
It's in the general fund,
So our garbage is in the general?
yes.
Because what has come before this automated garbage truck and these increases that we're seeing, is there going to be contingency in reserves that we've moved that we can use for unforeseen circumstances that come up?
So, a couple things here. So sanitation is similar to sewer and water as it is self-funded. So we calculate our user fees based on the expenses for automation or for sanitation, so recycling and garbage collection. There's been a bit of timing change, which I believe Ms. Davis will have a report coming to a future Finance and Audit Committee. There is a bit of timing. The trucks are coming in a little bit later than we had originally planned. So our debt servicing cost for 2018 will be lower than anticipated, but that also changes how long we'll have the recycling contract and some other little changes. So we are projecting a bit of a surplus there, and for the 2018 budget, we have moved that surplus into reserve because there is still some timing and uncertainty how everything will play out with automation. So if there is a surplus, we have projected, right now there'd be a small one, we'll put it to reserve for sanitation that we will use in the future to lower user fees. But we also have that buffer money there if there comes up some unexpected expenses or timing with automation, that we can use those funds to help with those costs, so that hopefully we wouldn't have to look at changing the user rate for 2018.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my question, is to make sure that we actually had some money this year that we put aside. I know that we have reserves for it, but I would like to see some of the money from 2017 specifically go to that reserve.
Okay, so no 2017 money is going there. This is 2018 money that we're anticipating saving because of the shorter debt servicing timeline for 2018. We're putting that to reserves. There's no 2017 money going to that sanitation leveling reserve.
But then you've just said that our recycling contract is going to have to be increased, so there's going to be a cost
Yes, and so we're offsetting
associated
that with the savings from the debt servicing costs. So simpler terms, so the debt servicing is probably going to be about 300, just off the top of my head, probably $300,000 less than we were planning for 2018, but the recycling contract's going to be a little bit more because we're going to need their services a little bit longer than we were anticipating when we did the budget. There's been a few changes in tipping fees, so I believe our net savings we're projecting right now is about $155,000, which we will put into that sanitation leveling reserve, barring no other changes in sanitation, and we'd use that to reduce user fees in the future, but that also means we have that bit of a cushion there should something come up with the timing or costs with the rollout of phase 2.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Kip.
Yeah, on here, there's an unallocated water surplus on page 6 of the report. I think, Councillor, is it? No, it should to the one on the bottom, so. Yeah, no, it's a simple one. Okay. And so with that, the RCMP contract adjustments, will there be a difference this year because we're down in numbers because of, I'll say, sick bank and that? I heard they're really down in numbers. So will that run us a surplus this year by a large amount? Because we don't pay for the medical costing.
Yeah, after 30 days
After
goes to the
30
province.
days.
we've reduced the budget, so in theory, we should be close to what, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Finished? Councillor Fuller?
Just curious, if we approve this, does that mean we can no longer use any of these monies to reduce taxes? I don't mind the 3.1, but I think we could drop it further somehow. And my concern is if we approve this, then there's no opportunity to reduce taxes.
Okay, go ahead, you're on.
If you approve it the way it is, yes, there would be no adjustment to the 2018 budget. Anything you would like to see changed in this, we would need to know now so we can reflect that.
Oh, seeing no further, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Show Councillor Fuller opposed. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a delegation from Ms. Lauren Semple. Ms. Semple?
Good morning. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Lauren Semple, and I'm the president of the Nanaimo Pride Society. I'm going to be honest, I'm doing a little bit of succession planning. I have come to the end of my time with the Nanaimo Pride Society. In our constitution and bylaws, we have a 3-year limit, a 3-term limit on the time a board member can sit, and I've reached that time. This is my final term. I'm going to continue my work with the Pride Society in supporting mostly Pride Week celebrations, which I, as well as the rest of the board members and past President Rick Myers, have worked tirelessly over the past 3 years to build and create for our city and our community. So Pride started in 1997 here in Nanaimo with a very proud and loud march down a sidewalk in downtown because they weren't able to have a parade at that time. And then throughout the years, we've had picnics in the park, dances at Pleasant Valley Hall, and we've really worked to build a community that is a queer community that is diverse and supported and proud, and they contribute to the overall Nanaimo landscape, which contribute to our culture, our community, and our economy. And what we wanted to do in 2016, under Rick Myers as our president, was take Pride to a new level and create a celebration that the city could be a part of, the whole city could be proud of, and that would attract tourists, would attract visitors to our city so they could see the beautiful, diverse, colorful community that we have, our supportive, support systems and resources that we have in place for the LGBTQ2+ community. And I think that we've really done that. We see huge success in the past events, and we see huge success going forward with them. So we have our largest event obviously being the Pride Parade and Festival, which happens annually since 2016, and we'll be having our 3rd one this year. We see over 10,000 visitors just to that event alone that are coming from as far as Alberta and Saskatchewan. We have vendors registering for our festival coming from all parts of the island, from as north as Port Hardy and Port McNeill, down from Victoria. We have vendors coming from Burnaby, New Westminster, Mission, coming to participate in our event. We hear feedback constantly about how different our Pride is. It has a great community feel. One of the favorite events of tourists is our flag raising. They specifically come to town early to take in our flag raising at City Hall on the Wednesday when we raise the rainbow flag. And that says something to me. And hearing the feedback that we're different than Vancouver Pride, we're different than Victoria Pride, there's a real heart in this community for the LGBTQ members of it. And that is something to be really proud of. Now, going forward, I want to see Nanaimo Pride continue. So this year I've been doing a lot of work around securing Pride Week and making sure that it can continue to grow and be successful. Some of the things that I've done are a lot in terms of funding. So really making sure that the society has set annual fundraisers that take place. We have dances, socials, and we throw a very, very popular sellout burger and beer annually at the Queen's, actually, which is a big fundraising point for us. On top of that, our strong community partnerships with sponsors is amazing. We have the BC Ferry and Marine Workers Union who've actually stepped up and taken our title presenting sponsorship for this year. They're involvement and support for the Pride Society has only grown and grown over the past years, and they've taken title sponsorship to ensure the longevity of this celebration. They understand how important it is and the solidarity behind it. We have the Wave radio station who comes on with a massive promotional and advertising sponsorship for us, and that's continuing. We partner with HeliJet as well as TD Bank. And on top of that, we're securing new relationships with the Coast Hotel and working on travel packages, partnering with Melissa Mills at Tourism Nanaimo, meeting with her, the Coast, and HeliJet together to create tourism packages and advertising, and we're coming up with ways to get people here and get them planning to come here for Pride ahead of time. So what I'm kind of looking at doing with the city is that in past years we've had the city of Nanaimo come on technically as a sponsor of our events, helping with last year providing the parade blockades, which was hugely successful and important to us. It was integral to us actually expanding our parade route instead of starting at the base of Commercial Street, trying to jam all of our staged floats into Wharf Street and around the conference center and things. And as everyone knows, grad time is happening during Pride Week. We have 2 grads that take place. I believe it's NDSS and Barsby that happen the same week. It's a very busy week for Nanaimo as it is, and the summer is always really bustling with tourism. So, you know, being able to extend our parade route is really important to the success and the continued growth of that event. The year prior, I mean, our ask was really for the rainbow crosswalks, which was Rick Meyer's dream, was to have those rainbow crosswalks painted. And then last year we expanded that, thank you to the motion and amendment of Councillor Fuller, expanded that to have 2 more crosswalks added, and the parade blockades. So when I was kind of taking a look at going forward with Nanaimo Pride, I realized, going back through notes and talking to past President Rick Myers, was that we've been doing this in a piecemeal way. This has been repeatedly just coming back, committee of the whole, council meetings, asking year after year. And I know it was Councillor Yoakum who brought up last year possibly reaching an MOU, possibly talking about formalizing some sort of support, a relationship that the city would have with Nanaimo Pride Society going forward so that we could continue the success and the building of this event to be something that's good for Nanaimo as a whole. I guess what I'm here to ask for today is what we're looking at doing is, you know, great news, our rainbow crosswalks didn't get vandalized this year. And I mean that in all sincerity. It is really, really great. They actually have fared really well since last year. Minimal burnouts, absolutely no spray painting or hate speech on them at all. It's been fantastic. Do I think those need to be touched up this year? I don't know. Could they be brightened up? Absolutely. They're definitely a focal point of the festival. Is that something that can happen annually, or we should explore happening annually or perhaps biannually? I'd like to be open to maybe that conversation. And the parade blockades are something that it just kind of falls slightly outside of what our fundraising levels are right now. So this year where we're at is we've realized that if we don't secure some additional funding and help from the city, we won't be able to support the larger parade route, and we'll have to minimize it so we're not doing the highway crossing. It's just too dangerous, and having the parade blockades managed by volunteers, it's very, very dangerous for them to be kind of in that position. Staff are trained to do this, and it provides a little bit of extra safety and, you know, WCB in case things were to happen. I really want to create a relationship, a partnership, formalize something going forward, though, around those 2 items, if possible, and I ask this committee to consider that, because I don't want to have future boards having to come back here and do these conversations. I've been with Rick for 3 years. I know this deal. I knew, you know, kind of what I was coming into, but I know that future volunteers that step into this position and take over this board, as I have, you know, might not have the resources or support to do so. And I'd like to set something up that, you know, can carry the society forward. So essentially why I'm here today is to have that discussion and talk about options that we could look at, specifically around the maintenance of the rainbow crosswalks at Commercial and Bastion, and assistance and support for our annual parade.
Thank you, Lauren. I have a number of questions here. Councillor Hong.
I fully support Pride and Pride Week, but because of what I do and help them with, I'm going to declare this as a perceived conflict. I think this specific event, I do fully support. So I think the problem is if I declare myself as a perceived conflict, we lose quorum. So
Are you-
optically,
Are you in a pecuniary conflict?
No.
And you're just in a perceived conflict, but you can defend that, I believe, because we're sitting here as a council hearing a presentation from an organization looking for assistance from the city.
yeah, and this has
You
really,
could, you could abstain from a vote later if you so choose, but I'd hate to lose a quorum on this important issue.
sounds good. And like I said, if this is just to bring it to council, because this isn't,
Oh.
yeah, is that?
I just wanted to clarify that if a counselor's in the room, they can't abstain from voting.
No, I don't mind voting, but this isn't, this is just a committee, right? It then goes to council, so I would have time to get a legal opinion
Yeah.
with regards to that. I don't think I am, but optically,
You have a
from what I
special
hear.
interest currently, and you'll get that
I have
declared.
special interest in a lot of organizations,
Appreciate that.
and I do support them.
So,
So I will stay
we'll
for
accept
this.
Councillor Yocum.
Thank you. For getting conversation rolling, definitely support this, and like thank Ms. Semple for and the good work you've done in your term. It's sad that your term's up, but you're doing good work, and hopefully we can. I know you believe in a positive mark here, so I'd like to make a motion to support the request here, providing blockades and city workers for the parade, but also a friendly amendment to the motion. Also have someone have the touched up if need be. I'm not no the crosswalks touched up, and to conclude, some staff to work on a protocol/MOU with yourself before your term's up. For the simple fact, I would not want to go back to the 90s or whenever that was, where council seemed to not,
2005.
2005, when the leadership did not, at the day, did not want to have support a parade, which is so barbaric, but nonetheless, I won't get into that. And there's my motion.
I don't have a second yet, but I have a speaker. I have a speaker too. Can we hold the motion?
Absolutely, absolutely, Jimmy.
Thank you. It says here, Councillor Bestwick. There's the names, right?
Thank you. And I wanted to commend you for your work that you've done with Pride. You and Rick have done an amazing job. And not to say that there's not an army of people, beside you in this project, but you've been front and center. I do have one request for you though, and that is it possible to move Pride this year 1 week later? I can't believe it, but my wife and I have scheduled a holiday. It's right in the middle of Pride. It's going to be the second parade in a row I'm going to miss. Can you move it 1 week, please?
I would love to honor that request. However, Mr. Mayor, all of the fathers in Nanaimo would be very upset with you. We are avoiding Father's Day weekend, and so we've claimed that second week in June for that reason.
Thank you. I have no questions for the delegation.
Councillor Hong, you up?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Lauren. So I think this parade is very valuable. And so the question is, we have two other major parades that we should look at. That have you discussed with them? Bathtub Society has a parade. Mm-hmm. And we have May Long Weekend Heritage Day Parade. Mm-hmm. And we also have Santa Claus Parade, which I love. My son loves still. So I understand your motion and what you would like from us, but wouldn't this be better if you spoke for all four of the organizations coming together to apply the same balance of funding, I guess, per se, or support to those organizations as well, and for their parades as well? Because the problem I have is we're cherry picking one to another, and I feel that the other ones deserve support just as much. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a great question. Just a quick point of clarification. Are the other parade organizers approaching this council and this committee asking for assistance?
Individually, they all come. Once somebody does, then I think we've had this discussion about every year. I think they come and try to figure out how we get it.
Yeah, I'm going to say that's a good point, but we probably need to send that to staff of how we can get and sit together with those organizations. I think we're looking for the consistent route and people, so when the people gather, they come to the downtown core And blocking the highway sometimes for a parade, for me, is not a bad idea. You know, it shows that the parade is important to our community, and that highway through town can slow down, or we can divert traffic. And sometimes I think what our problem is we don't take enough control over those issues, and there's an expense attached to it. So I think we could move that to staff, but this is a specific request currently.
Yeah, if I might, one of the things that I'm going to cross my pride line here. One of the things about extending the parade route is that we don't want to cut off Victoria Crescent. And a lot of our queer community congregates on Victoria Crescent at the establishments that are there. And so it was actually really important to our community members that we included that Victoria Crescent portion into our parade. As everyone knows, that corner is very, very important to me, and I feel it's very valuable to the city of Nanaimo. My side project, the Urban Art Gallery, is directly impacting that corner. It's something I feel very strongly about. In terms of other parades asking for support, I think it's really important to mention that when it comes to finding sponsors, when it comes to fundraising, and when it comes to mobilizing people to make these events happen and to establish the society that supports them, LGBTQ organizations have it far, far harder than any other organization that you just listed. Not to say that they aren't totally, throwing amazing events and just as deserving of funding and support as the Pride Society, but just to bring forward that we struggle with an extra layer of discrimination when approaching sponsors, volunteers, and fundraising. It is just a little bit harder because not too far below the surface in Nanaimo is a very, very thick layer of homophobia and discrimination and hate. And we run into it as queer community members every single day. We run into it walking down the street, going into businesses, and trying to do this good advocacy work, which is, I think, what keeps us coming back to the city. To answer the councillor's question, is not that we believe we're more worthy or more deserving of the funding, but we just struggle just a little bit harder, and we're trying to make something.
We don't have a quorum, which means I appreciate that very much. We have another speaker. Councillor Hong obviously thought we have another speaker. Recommendation now?
So now we can wait for Councillor Hong to return and then continue the meeting.
I gotta go to work at 11.
We have to, yeah, no. These are bad days for people that have jobs.
Yep. I don't.
I've never had a job in my life, so what am I to talk about? Never had a job. I don't know what I do. All right. Off the topic, and here comes Councillor Hong. So, Councillor Hong, you're finished, obviously.
I've had this conversation all day.
Mayor McKay has. We still have the motion hanging for a second. Mayor McKay.
Okay, so thank you. I'd like to support the motion that's on the floor. As far as this delegation having the responsibility of going to the other parades,
they don't have that.
They don't have that. This is something that I've known that we are going to face. When Empire Days became replaced by a new committee, there was no recognition by the city that the new committee would need the support that Empire's Days required. We've got the same thing here. I think we should refer that back to staff so that we can do this blanket for everybody. We've got May Day, or the May Day parade. We've got Pride. We've got bathtub, Santa Claus. So we need to understand that these folks don't need to have to go out to fundraise for services that we provide to other parades. We need to figure out how to answer that question for ourselves. As far as the public works support, that covers that. As far as the freshening up of the crosswalks, we all had a presentation that discussed the different types of paint that was available. There's a very thick vinyl paint, as I understand, that would last longer, but I don't think it would last longer in our conditions because it's intended for asphalt. Our roads at those crosswalks are all brick. And so they move and so on and so forth. So I think on this one here, we need to consider two things. One is public works support and an annual refreshing of the of the sidewalks. We chose a very, very inexpensive option, which was paint. They've done a really good job, and they've held up really well. The vinyl would be inappropriate for these, I believe. And many times more. I think it was 5 times more expensive than the paint, if I recall.
Yeah, that's what the town of Ladysmith opted. When I presented to them 2 years ago about crosswalks, they opted, because they're doing asphalt, they could
Right.
apply for the more expensive, that's the method they went with. So their touch-up schedule is a lot different.
Right.
But again, it doesn't work on the brick or
So I
cobblestone.
hear a second for the motion that Councillor.
Yeah.
So I have a motion on the floor that Councillor Yocum has, and I believe staff has that, and it's been seconded. Do we need to talk any further? Anybody? Councillor Hong?
Thank you. Just a question, and I support this, but the fact that, do we have to use city workers for the parade? Is it more cost benefit for us to have JSK or one of these flag people? Like, can we just narrow this down to support for the parade? Because if we're doing
Can I
overtime.
suggest staff can bring that back and report to how this would come into the budget, where it would come, and some of the options for facilitating the necessity of the barriers, flagging, or whatever.
Yeah, because I want to apply this, as Councillor, or the mayor said, to across
Across the budget.
the other ones, so
Yeah.
even if they don't come forward to it.
Okay, well, wait a
we'll do
second,
that.
please, Billy, wait, we need a quorum.
Thank you.
So I'm going to call the question. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? No one's opposed? Thank you very much. Before I release that, I have a concern with the sidewalks.
Okay.
My flag should never hit the ground. I know it's been an international symbol for years, giving the rednecks the ability to burn out in that. I would love to see flags. Like my flag should never hit the ground, and my enemies would walk on my jersey if they put it on the ground, and I just hate that. From an internal hate, you talk about hate. I hate the fact it gives them the ability to do that. So I don't know how we could, to make that corner, whether it was beautiful flags and they were maintained and they were lit up in the evening, so it's not just on the ground. It is a groundswell, but it's moving it up. And so for me, I get goosebumps thinking the sidewalks when I see burnout marks on them and the disrespect for it, and that bothers me. Walking on it, I see, okay, people notice it and see it, but for me, get that flag off the ground. I don't know, I don't want to, you know what I'm like, I can always cause trouble. But for me, it's a tough one. So I appreciate that. I'd like to move the receipt of the delegation, which we should have done earlier. And is there anything further, anything from the public on a delegation? Thank you very much, Lauren. Appreciate it.
No, wait, I want to make a motion to exactly what you said.
Move the stuff forward to staff on
Yeah,
a
so
review
we
of how
approved
we can
this one, so I like
facilitate
to.
parades.
Yeah, so I like to make a motion to facilitate the other parades for a staff report.
Second the motion, anybody? Anybody? Second? Okay. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion to adjourn. So moved.
That's to direct
Second,
council
done.
to get a staff report.
Thank you.
because we
Thank you very much.
Staff report.